Hi guys, welcome to my channel. If you're new here, thank you so much for clicking on this video, and welcome back to my channel if you've decided to come back again. So today we're filming another finishing series episode with me, because I mean I'm on a series hunt now for the rest of the year. So as part of my 2025 reading goals, the main ones were obviously to get my physical TBR down and to the series I'm in the middle of down as well. And I fear I'm not going to be able to reach the goal that I've set for myself, which was down to like 10 series. It's not looking likely, so we're going to continue these videos, and maybe in July and August time we might have a fun little TBR way of doing our TBR to help with this. Today we're going to be reading 4 books actually for this video. It was going to be 3, but then I've already started reading another book from a different series, and I thought, why not include it in here? So I'm going to be reading Killer Instinct by Jennifer Lynn Barnes, which is book 2 in the Natural series, Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Sorry if the angle's changed, my camera's stuck to a table, honestly, to get this angle is hilarious. So yeah, book 2 will be Daisy Jones and the Six from the TGR famous range. Then we have The Match by Sarah Adams, which is book 1 in the Happened in Charleston series, and Part of Your World, which is book 1 of the, I think, Part of Your World series by Abby Jimenez. So they're going to be the books we read this month for this series. I'm hoping to enjoy them all, obviously, and I will let you get into the video. Obviously, we're going to keep this video as midway points and final thoughts and check-ins, so let's get into it. I'm sorry this is backlit, but I've got an update for you. So I am 75% of the way through Daisy Jones and the Six. I'm hoping to finish it tonight actually. I've been listening to it on audiobook because of it being interview style. A few people recommended that way, and I thought, oh, that's going to be a good way for me to listen to it, so I've been consuming it that way and I've been loving it. I don't think it's going to be quite a 5-star, and I think potentially it might just be because there's so many characters that it's hard to follow them all, but I have really enjoyed it, and I do think it's 4 stars and it was a very enjoyable read. So yeah, just wanted to give you like this quick check-in. So if you don't know about Daisy Jones and the Six, it is by Taylor Jenkins Reid, and you are following a band from the 70s or 80s, I believe, as they were like a really hit band, and you're following an interview kind of in the future of their success and their careers. You're following like the band, which is the Six, and then Daisy Jones was a solo artist, and she kind of came in to join the band and featured on a song, and then they created an album together. However, there was a lot of drama and speculation around this. It's taken me a little while to get to this point because it's currently the weekend after I've just finished the 200 pages, so I was kind of focusing on that first, even though I started Daisy Jones and the Six then. So I'm hoping to finish this within the next couple of days, and then I will give you my final thoughts when I have. Hi guys, I'm filming these clips back to back, so I'm sorry that the angle's not going to change, but I have finished Daisy Jones and the Six. What a book! Like, honestly, I was enjoying it, and I thought, oh, the interview style is really, really lovely, and it is really nice, but just wasn't necessarily like the most gripping book. And then the twist came at the end of how obviously the interviewer links to the characters in the story, and I just never saw it coming. I didn't think it needed it in the book, but to add it in added so. That book was incredible. I ended up giving it 4 stars. I didn't give it 5 stars. I wasn't overly gripped throughout the whole thing. However, the ending really pulled it back for me, and I definitely gave it 4 stars. I mean, Taylor Jenkins Reid's writing is so incredible, and to be honest, I feel like it wasn't a 5 stars because to me it didn't feel like a book. I listened to it on audiobook, as I've heard that that's probably the best way to kind of consume the content, and it just didn't feel like a book. It felt like I was listening to a really, really, really long interview, and I fear that is the way that Taylor Jenkins Reid wanted it. But because of that, and because it was an interview with a band that obviously don't exist, it feels like they exist, but then because I don't know them and I don't have that interest in them, then I didn't have that intrigue, and I fear that's what stopped it having the 5 stars. But I absolutely loved it. So obviously you're following the band and following all the perils and pitfalls and everything, but it was just so interesting to see inside their heads and see different key moments that happened throughout the band and their thoughts and feelings. And like I say, you really did feel like they were a real band, like what was being talked about was real events that happened. Yeah, you thought that the events that they were talking about were real events that happened, and it was just incredible. I would definitely highly recommend this book, and I would recommend listening to it on audiobook, because it just, I consumed it like it was a real life interview, and at times I did forget that it wasn't real. Like, it really did feel real, and it's a 70s band that clearly a lot of the artists in the band were going through quite a lot of stuff, and just a lot of things with like sobriety and drugs and alcohol that you can imagine a lot of. That's real life. That was real life for a lot of bands in the 70s. So yeah, I did really enjoy it, and I would highly recommend, and I would definitely recommend picking up the audiobook. Obviously I can't recommend reading the physical book because I haven't, but I feel listening to the audiobook was such a unique experience and I really enjoyed it. So yeah, highly recommend. 4 stars in the end, and just what an incredible book. I'm so excited to move on to Malibu Rising. So excited. Final update from this spot. So as you probably know, I tend to read like a book and listen to a book at the same time, which is why I can update you on Daisy Jones and the Six and Killer Instinct at the same time. But I am now 50% of the way through Killer Instinct. It is book 2 of a series. I can't really give you many specifics on the book, but just know you're continuing to follow the children from the Natural series as they are trying to solve cold cases using their natural abilities. So you've got a mind reader, not a mind reader, but you've got a emotions reader. You've got 2 kind of profilers which use your behaviour and talents and stuff like that. You've got a lie detector person who is really good at detecting lies and can tell lies, and you have a statistical person, and she is really good with like numbers and facts. So you're continuing to follow those, and you're following on a new case that's happening, and also it links a lot back to things that happened in specific characters, like previous backstory, and you're following the main character and her backstory and seeing how that's going to link. I'm now about 50% of the way through. Now I will say I am not as gripped with this as book 1, but I fear I'm just in a bit of a reading slump. So if you've seen my Fearless vlog, you'll know I read that in a day and I absolutely ate it up. I loved it so much, but the issue I've got is that I love that one so much and I consumed so much in one day that it's kind of stumped me out. And on top of that, I was doing a 200 pages a day challenge for that week, and it's just I fear it's a lot. So I'm going to just stick with it. I feel it is a good book, but I'm just not as gripped with the characters as I was for the first one. I think the story's just not gripping me as much, and I don't know whether it's because I know I don't know the ending and I don't know the outcome of this case or whatever, but I know the characters a lot better, so I knew what was kind of coming and how they're going to interact and stuff. And I do feel 90% of it is down to this slump. I think if I wasn't back home as well, being back home means I don't do a lot of reading because I tend to be out. So obviously it's currently 11 o'clock when I'm filming this, and I'm dressed up because I've just been to the theatre and I've spent all day like going to appointments, seeing friends, seeing family. So I tend to just generally be busier when I'm back home, so I don't get a lot of reading done. But I'm hoping to continue on with this one and just get into it. Like I said, I'm 50% of the way through now and I am enjoying it, so I will see how this goes, but I don't think this one will be a 5-star like the first one. I think at the moment, if I was to rate it right now, it'd be a 3-star, but it does have potential to be boosted up to a 4-star, so we will see. But I will check back in with you guys when I finish it. Spoiler, I've finished Killer Instinct and you will see me sat in this exact same spot for multiple other clips, but while it's nice outside, I thought let's get these clips done and then I can start editing the video because I haven't yet, and it goes out this weekend. So it is currently Thursday. As you can see, I'm sat on my balcony, so I'm sorry if you can hear any noises in the background. I do keep trying to pause so I can cut out where the noises are. So it's currently Thursday. I finished Killer Instinct a couple of days ago, and this is book 2 in The Naturals. I can't really say too much on it. I gave book 1 5 stars. I gave this book 4 stars. I don't know why. I spoke to my cousin and she really liked books 1 and books 2, but not books 3 and 4. And I just feel like this book, Jennifer Lynn Barnes was overcompensating the explanations on the characters. Now, I don't know whether she wrote these books as kind of interconnected standalones where you could potentially read them out of order, but everyone I've seen obviously recommends and says to read them in order. So it's just, I feel like every time we were meeting the characters to start with, we were getting a re-explanation of their like abilities and what they can do and what's going on and like the agents and stuff like that. I felt like had she taken some of that out, it wouldn't have felt as repetitive, but because it was all in there, it felt very much like you're trying to make this a standalone, but rather than with romance standalones where they're kind of interconnected, because it's Chestnut Spring series, obviously you follow one brother in book 1 and then another in book 2 and then their friend in book 3, so you've got that found family element, and they do recommend to read them in order, but it's not essential because realistically you're following the romance of 2 different main people. Whereas obviously this book is, you're following the same cast of characters and you're following it on from the events in book 1, and I feel like some of the elements were really re-explained, and other parts of the elements, like what happened in book one, the main thing that happened in book one, and why a new character was introduced, really wasn't re-explained at all. And so I'm like, kind of like, if that's not being re-explained, why is like their abilities being re-explained? But also the first scenario where they don't talk about what happened in book one is kind of like discussed in a way which you don't need to know what happened. You just need, like, they give you basic facts. It's just, yeah, it wasn't my favorite. I believe I ended up giving it 4 stars. I stand by that. I do think it is very much a 4-star book. It was good. I liked kind of the twists and the turns in it. A few of the like whodunit, I guess, but it is a YA book, so I'm not kind of disappointed in that. I would recommend this series, but I definitely would say read it, obviously, from The Naturals to, what was this one, Killer Instinct, and then yeah, I'm gonna be going into All In relatively soon, I reckon, so that will be fun. But yeah, I'll pass you on to Lauren to tell you about the match. You've joined me this morning getting ready for work, but I thought I would give you some updates. I am currently 50% of the way through Killer Instinct. No, the match. I am currently 50% of the way through the match. I think just over 50% actually. And I mean, I started reading this at the start of April. I started reading it on my Kindle, and I thought, I can read as much as I can the first few days before going into the 200 pages challenge, and then anything that I don't read, I will finish off. And I picked it up and I just wasn't loving it. Now, my best friend's already read this book, and she's the other person in my life that is a reader as such. I'm sorry about the lighting in here. Yeah, so she's the only person in my life that's like also an avid reader. And when I spoke to her about it, I said, I picked it up, but I'm just not overly feeling it. Like, what was your thoughts? And she said, yeah, it was kind of like a good, like a mediocre book. It was like middle of the road. And I was just like, I just don't know how I feel. I'm not enjoying it. And she said, yeah, it wasn't one that she would recommend or write home about. If you've picked it up, then it's a good read, but it's not one that she would say like everyone has to read kind of thing. And I was like, okay, but I've picked it for this video, so I'll keep going. And obviously I've got it on my TBR, so I want to read it, but we'll see if it picks up. Now, it's now Thursday, and this video goes out on Sunday. And at the start of this week, I had finished Daisy Jones and the Six, which you would have already seen, and was about halfway through Killer Instinct, and 20%, I think, away through the match. So I had the match to read, to finish, Killer Instinct to finish, Part of Your World to read. And I was just like, I'm gonna need to pick this up on audiobook. I think I'm gonna try getting at least one of these books done on audiobook, because it's a lot. And so I was like, which one is available? I realised my BookBeat subscription had renewed without me realising, or without me cancelling it. And so I was like, which ones are available on BookBeat? Now, the match was, which is why I've picked this one up on BookBeat. Normally if I start something physically or on my Kindle or whatever, I'll try and finish it off that way. But I picked up the match this way, and I have been listening to it on audiobook the last couple of days, and I've just loved it. I feel like if you are reading it and you're finding it, I don't know why. I've read Sarah Adams' writing before, and I always thought it was good, it was okay. It wasn't anything major, but it was okay. And I picked up an audiobook, and I'm absolutely loving it. Now, I said this to my friend, I just said, like, I don't know whether it is just a case of because I'm consuming the book faster and I'm not having to focus on the actual writing. Maybe for me it's a writing thing and not a story thing, because the premise of the story, I don't think I said. The main character, the female main character, I've forgotten her name. I know her dog's name's Charlie. She has epilepsy. She has a service or a medical dog to kind of help with this. So to help with anything, if she's having a seizure, to alert people and stuff like that. So she's got a medical dog, and she works for a charity that also gives medical dogs to other people in need. And this one girl, little girl Sam, she emailed, let me go find out her name, 1 second. She's called Evie. So this one girl, Sam, emails Evie from her dad's account and basically sets up this meeting. And so she orchestrates her dad going, and she's 10 years old, so she orchestrates her dad going to the cafe, bumping into Evie, and Evie trying to like obviously tell them this medical dog, but the dad, Jacob, is the main character, and he's coming to terms with his daughter's diagnosis of epilepsy and basically just doesn't trust that anyone can look after her as well as he can, and that they don't need a medical dog because he can basically do it all. So you're following that story, and obviously something happens that means they spend more time together, and the dogs, obviously there's like dogs in the story, and it's just at the moment it's a really sweet kind of romance. I'm questioning if there will be a third act conflict, and if so, what it will be. I feel like it's got to be something around a bit of hair in my head in. It's got to be something around her family because she doesn't overly get on with them, but like I said, I'm only 50% of the way through, so I don't actually know what that third act conflict's going to be. It could be that there isn't one, and that I'm saying this all very prematurely and Sarah Adams is going to keep it out, but I'm not sure. Like I said, I'm enjoying it so far. If I'd have carried on physically reading it, it would have probably been a 2 stars, and it would have been like a forced read for the video. However, I'm now really enjoying it and feel like it could potentially be a 3 to 4 stars, and that's purely just because I picked it up an audiobook and I'm consuming it in a way that works for me. I definitely recommend, if you aren't enjoying a book but you've heard, so I've heard like mixed reviews about this thing, but you've heard like some good reviews about a book, definitely try picking it up in a different format. Sometimes it's just the way that format is working for you might not work. Like sometimes the audiobooks really are not the one, and that's okay, and sometimes it's the physical books aren't the one for you either. So yeah, that's my update. I mean, I feel like I've just rambled for like 8 minutes and not said a lot, but I am enjoying it, and I will update you guys again soon. Well, I'm sat on the balcony, the sun is setting. What a better time than to film, and I've literally just finished The Match by Sarah Adams, and what a better time to film my thoughts clip. So I started The Match at the start of April, and it was around a 2 star. I really struggled to get into it. I really struggled to read it. I wasn't enjoying it. I didn't want to pick it up. I was really, I don't know if it was because I was in a bit of a slump or just the actual book, I just wasn't vibing with it at all. Like, I can't even explain it. And I spoke to my best friend, and she's read the book, and she said she felt the same. She just really struggled with it. Now, we both read the cheat sheet and really enjoyed that, and then I also read the rule book. I loved the rule book as well, but I just couldn't get into this book, and I put it down obviously to film my reading 200 pages challenge, and just kind of decided, I got to this week and I knew that this video needed to go out, so I thought I'm gonna pick it up on audiobook because I'm not vibing with it. I just want to kind of get into the story, get it done, and see what my final thoughts are. So I thought I'll audiobook it, and honestly, I've been giggling, I've been kicking my feet, I've been laughing, I've just been loving it. I've wanted to know what's happening next. And I'm not sure whether it's just a case of I picked up the audiobook and therefore that's the best way for me to have consumed it. I really struggled with like actually physically reading the writing, but listening to it was different. So I didn't know whether it was just genuinely like just picking up the audiobook was a better way to consume it, or whether it's a case of it was the right book at the right time. During my 200 pages, I read Fearless in a day, and I was saying to my best friend, I was like, I just really slumped out because it was an incredible book and I read so much in a day. It just caused me to massively slump. I also was reading Killer Instinct, which is a thriller. I've read The It Girl, which is a thriller. I've read The Change on audiobook, which is a thriller. I've had a lot of thrillers, and then I had Daisy Jones and the Six, which was contemporary fiction or literary fiction. So I've had a lot of thrillers, literary fictions. I feel like I read a lot of thrillers last month as well, and I've just been, as soon as I started reading Part of Your World, I really realised that I'm just craving a romance book, and I feel like The Match now was just the right book at the right time. I did really enjoy it. It was, at one point I was kind of teetering on the 5-star vibe, and then the third act conflict came and I just didn't like it. It happened at her parents' house, and I felt like the way the main character reacted to everything was just unnecessary, especially with like the discussions they'd had beforehand and just everything that he knew going into this. I felt like his reaction was unnecessary, and therefore the third act conflict was like not needed. I feel like Sarah Adams could have either not done a third act conflict or done a different way of managing it, whether that be with the parents or with his ex-wife. It doesn't matter, like the way, it's just the third act conflict, that the way it happened, I didn't like it. So that was kind of what bumped it down from a 5-star to a 4-star, but I did really enjoy it. I will say that I did really enjoy it. I personally would recommend it, but I would say I feel like it's one of the ones that you have to be in the right mood. It's definitely a book which I preferred the audiobook version, so it's up to you kind of how you guys interpret that. I would say go into it hesitantly. If the premise sounds good and her writing is good for you, then pick it up and see how it is. I liked the premise of learning about the medical dogs as well and how they will react, because it was quite knowledgeable on that as well. So, and I will pass you on to the next clip, which will be me talking about Part of Your World. So I am now about 45% of the way through Part of Your World. In Part of Your World, we are following Alexis and Daniel. Alexis is a emergency department nurse or doctor, and she comes from a line of surgeons and well-known and well-loved doctors. Within where she works, she's worked in a hospital where a member of her family's worked there for like hundreds of years. And then Daniel is a guy from a small town who runs a bed and breakfast, and he is kind of financially unstable. He's running this bed and breakfast but can't leave that small town, and they meet after Alexis is driving home from a funeral and gets stuck in the small town for this reason. And so they have a one-night stand, and then you're kind of following them from there, so you're kind of seeing what happens. I am enjoying it so far. When I first picked it up, I read the first couple of chapters and I was really hooked and I wanted to know what happened. However, I was reading this one and then I was listening to The Match. They're very similar like plot premises. Obviously, Alexis is a doctor with a rich family that she is trying to like step away from, and Daniel works in a small town owning a bed and breakfast. And then in The Match, you've got Evie, who is trying to step away from her family and runs a guide dog firm, and Jacob, who runs an architecture company but is not as rich as kind of Evie. So they follow very similar premises, and I just have got hooked on The Match, whereas I just don't know whether Part of Your World just not hitting the same. Don't know whether it's because I've been trying to read that one rather than audiobook it or what. I'm not into it as much. I don't know whether now that we're over that 50% mark that will change and it will be different, but I am enjoying it. At the moment it's sitting at a 3-4 star, so I'm hoping now that I'm in the kind of the crux of them and their relationship, you're now going to see how they're going to try and make this relationship work. So that's really interesting, but I will check back in obviously at the end when I finish and give you my final thoughts. I come with you with fresh hair. I look a little bit red, but it's literally just because I've just dried my hair. But I come to you with finishing Part of Your World. Now, I think I said in my first clip of this that I was reading The Match at the same time, and I was just struggling with this book because it reminded me so much of The Match, but I was just more invested in the characters in The Match, and I fear that probably influenced my rating. I know the series is really beloved, and I know that that's more for yours truly and just for the summer. So obviously now that I've read this book, I can move on to yours truly. However, I did end up picking this book up on audiobook because I was going out for a walk and I knew that I needed to get this filmed and ready for the weekend. So I was just like, right, let's try and finish it off on audiobook and see how far we can get. And once I picked up on audiobook and I wasn't listening to The Match anymore, I couldn't stop listening. And I do enjoy Abby Jimenez's writing. I enjoyed reading it as well as listening to it. So I fear that's something good that I got out of this book. However, the actual storyline wasn't my favourite. I did end up giving this one 4 stars purely because I did like the story. I liked the third act conflict, it did work. However, the ending just felt very rushed, and I knew how she would end up with him, kind of what the solution would be to one of the issues that they were facing. However, I just felt like that ending was really rushed. I would have liked to see the ending fleshed out a little bit more and see kind of her running what she set up, and also seeing what happens next in their relationship as well. I feel like the third act conflict kind of got resolved and then that was the end. And I know sometimes with romance books that is the case, but I fear this book had so much character focus that actually I wanted to know more about the characters than I did about the romance, and I wanted to see how, especially our female main character, how she continued on with that. So I ended up giving this book 4 stars purely. I did enjoy it and I did find myself liking it, which is what bumped it up from a 3 to a 4. I would definitely recommend, and I'm looking forward to seeing what the Yours Truly book and who they follow, because I don't actually know. So I know that they're interconnected standalones, but I'm not sure whether they are going to be internet connected on her side or his side. I'm more hoping for his side, just purely because of the small town where he is based. Feels like such a lovely place to be in, that I would love to see kind of some of the characters that we've been introduced there develop and see how they develop and if they can find love and romance. But I wouldn't be sad if it was her side as well. So I'm gonna go get the books and then we can sit down and do our wrap up. Okay guys, it is time to round out this video. We're gonna do a quick fire wrap up of the 4 books that we've looked at in this video. So we started the video with Daisy Jones and the Six, which I listened to audibly and I gave it 4 stars. It was a really good read. I just forgot that I was listening to a book sometimes and had to remind myself that it was not real. And I feel like having to do that took away some of the 5-star element to it, and I fear I just couldn't fully get lost in it, and I'm not sure why. So that was 4 stars. The next book we read was Killer Instinct by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. Again, another 4-star read. I enjoyed the books. I just feel like there was a lot of reintroducing the characters, which meant that the book felt kind of repetitive. So I'm hoping maybe going into the 3rd book that might not be the case. A few people that I've spoken to have said the series kind of starts off really, really like highly and then deteriorates, so I'm hoping that's not the case in my view. Then we read The Match by Sarah Adams. Again, another 4 stars. This video is literally all 4 stars, and I thought this was a really cute, cozy read. I definitely preferred the audiobook. I'm wondering whether book 2 in the duology is going to be the same, whether I'm going to need to get the audiobook for that one as well, but would recommend. And the last book is Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez, which I've just given you my thoughts on. This was 4 stars. I fear the ending was just too rushed and needed to be fleshed out a little bit more in order to let me see that character, the female main character, develop that a little bit further. But overall, a really good video for reads. I did really enjoy myself. Obviously, I read a lot through audiobook. That is how I'm reading a lot at the moment. I'm commuting a lot now. That job's changed now, so hopefully I won't be commuting as much, which means I can pick up a lot more books physically, especially as next month's TBR. I've pulled and there's only 1 book that I can get on audiobook, so that should be interesting. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. I am really excited to have started 2 new series, but also continue to within this video, and we're working on our finishing series goal. But yeah, sorry for the chaotic like vibe of this video. I feel like it's just been very chaotic, but I hope you guys enjoyed. Please feel free to comment anything down below, comment any books you want me to get to, and like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you next time. Bye.